that made me begin to think of the world of self-publishing. And I started investigating the world of self-publishing. In 2009, there's 1,057,400 and some odd books sold. Published, excuse me, not sold, published. And 3/4 of those books are self-published. So the publishing world is shrinking to some degree, right? The real growth is in self-publishing because of print on demand. Because if you are an author and you can't afford a lot of money, you can buy one book from your publisher if you're working with the right publisher. Right? You can buy 10 books. You can buy 100 books. Whatever you want. I said, all right, I'll think about it. And I went to bed that night, and I came up with a title that is going to be my memoir. And it's What Keeps You Going? Think about that. I like to do catchy titles because I try to write to get people to think. Every one of my books, even though they're fiction, the first one is based on current events, the sequel is based on current events, the Western is based on history. The books, when I write and I can switch back and forth, it makes it a little easier. But when I like to write, I like to give a message. And it's important for me to do that. And what I've done is, when I told my wife what the title was going to be, I said, this will be a memoir. Because we don't have days to talk here, and every one of us has their own story about their livelihood. And I have decided to put down my life in a book. Not all the gory details, but a fair share, and all the good stuff too. To motivate people to realize that people go through tough times, and then they go through good times, and things change. Those things don't stay forever. And it all depends how you handle them. And the book starts when I was born, October 5th, 1941, and will end when I'm 70. Of course, it'll be published sometime 2013, but I'll still be 70 then. Close to 71 probably, but I'll be 70 in October. So that's the series of how I'm going to write it. I have a massage therapist who bought my first 2 books, and no, excuse me, the second and third book. And she and I talked about this new memoir, and she said it'll be great because people will relate to what someone else went through. But when I write a memoir, I have to put it down after a while because there are things like writing the dog book. The last 2 chapters in the dog book took me 2 weeks to write, a week for each chapter. And it was stuff I could have written quickly, but they were so emotional. In writing the memoir, I have to think about what I want to write, so I don't want to make certain individuals look really bad, right? Because you can affect people's lives when you write stuff like that. And so when I write the trilogy, it's my fun time. It'll be about current events. The sequel was deliberately left open in a number of areas, just like the first book was. And my head of my writers group is the one that asked me to write a trilogy. I mean, I never thought of writing a sequel. And this cousin from New Jersey encouraged me to write a sequel. The head of my writers group said, you need to write a trilogy and sell the books as a packet. And the funny thing about it was when he asked me that a week before, I had been thinking about writing a book about assassins. See, that's the kind of gory guy I am. And I could fit the role of an assassin in the trilogy by the way I ended the sequel. And I won't tell you how it ended because that really disappoints readers if you knew too much ahead of time. But, you know, you can do that. And if you can write something to entertain yourself and give yourself some satisfaction. Now I'm finding that memoir is important to me. When I took that English Comm course, one of our 6 assignments that I mentioned was you needed to write a 3-page outline of something, really, we still do. But she died in 1950, March 27th. And, you know, how do you put all that together? Right? And I wrote it for the class because it was an assignment, and that was something dear to me. After I finished the class, I didn't want to continue writing in that vein because I felt that I'd had enough. I got over something, over her few. Not that I don't think about it and remember some of the stuff I wrote about, but it was that I touched something inside myself. Okay? Then, when my wife said I need to write another heart-to-heart book, the most meaningful thing to me to write would be about my life's experiences, the good ones and the sad ones, because that's helped me to grow and be who I am. My wife encouraging me to write in 2005 brings me here tonight. I do this for free. I don't get paid for this. If you want to buy a book, great. If not, that's okay too. Right? But I do it because I try to share what I've experienced in helping others grow. And I'll tell you, to me, there's no better thing in life. What else would you like to talk about? Go ahead, you've got something you're dying to ask me. I can see it on the tip of your tongue.
How about...
Speak a little louder for me.
How about... I have to think about...
Okay. Well, I find that writing gives me a great deal of enjoyment. It's an accomplishment. It's a way I can socialize, be here. Because as a writer, if you want to sell your goods, you need to sell. That's part of the salesperson, part of my personality. I sold engineered products to industry for close to 50 years. And that was a nice part of my life, but I'm glad I don't do it anymore, especially with the price of gas, and I used to pay my own gas expense. Okay. But, you know, it's really given me a sense of who I am. I volunteer time at my local library. I'm on the Foundation Board of Directors. And the Foundation Board of Directors for the Manchester Library is a fundraising board. It's not like the trustees. Trustees deal with the operational funds of the city to pay the bills and the employees, but the Foundation Board is the fundraising board. And that's my way of giving back to my own library. Right? And being an author now makes me realize how important that is. Yeah. So it's opened up a whole new avenue for me. You know, my wife teaches literacy. Right now she's working with a Chinese student who's working on a master's degree at Southern New Hampshire University with English as a second language. That gives her a lot of satisfaction. She's become a very gifted artist. You know, you talked about not wanting to, not being able to do something. Let me give you a classic example about my wife. I said she's a published poet. And back 10 years ago, she said, I'm going to take another poetry class. And I said, what? She said, I'm going to take another poetry class. And I said, you're a published poet. You don't need another poetry class. Spread out. Okay? Do something different. Think about it. Well, the next morning she said to me, you know, I'd really like to draw. I said, well, take a drawing class. And she took a class at the Art Institute in Manchester. And she took an evening because she was working her own business. She learned that 3-hour classes at night was too much for her after working all day. 2 hours was fine, but 3 hours, so she would never take another 3-hour class. But she found out she liked it. She found out she could draw. She found out she enjoyed it. And she found out she wanted to do more. She has been taking classes now, various workshops for 10 years. She belongs to the Manchester Artists Association. And like most writers, oh, I don't want to do this, somebody's going to say it's not good enough. I've been trying to encourage her to submit her work at various places. And the first time she did, she won one of the 4 achievement awards. So don't you think that was a positive reinforcement? But many times we'll say, that's beautiful. She's learning to do acrylic painting right now. And she'll say, nah, it's not good enough. I said, it's beautiful. You know? Well, you're just saying that. No, I'm not just saying that. If I think I don't like it, I tell you, you know that. But, you know, there's where we need to do. And now there's a gift that she has that she can share with other people. She has created a lot of prints, and she has created cards from her prints, and she markets her cards. Another thing we do together is we do craft shows, and we get a table together, and I have my books on one side of the table, and she has her artwork on the other side of the table. And it's fun, so, you know, those things in life are enjoyable. So life's not always boring. And even when you get old at my age. Okay. What else can I offer you? Give me a suggestion.
So with all the work that you do with the writers groups and also with your public library, is there any mentoring type of things that you offer? Like, can people run ideas by you?
For the writers group? You mean
outside of it.
Like the one I have in Derry or the New Hampshire Writers Project?
Derry and then outside of both of the groups. Like
Okay. The one in Derry, we meet every 2 weeks and we critique each other's work. We're there from 6:30 to 9 at the community center in Derry on Broadway. The only mentoring we tend to do is when somebody writes the changes that they would like to see anywhere, we vocalize it as well. So that's the form of mentoring that we do there. Excuse me. I have personally sent other members ideas that have struck me about something I didn't think of that night, and I would send them emails. We email back and forth, and likewise they do the same for me. That's about the extent of the mentoring of that group. The New Hampshire Writers Project has workshops through the course of the year. They have their annual day, which has 3 workshops during the day, and each of those workshop timetables has 4 to 5 choices, and you can pick one of those choices for that particular time period. So there's a lot of mentoring there. For instance, one workshop I took there 2 years ago, an author writes mysteries. But he said today he's learned, and he's a successful author, he said today he's learned that, you know, you don't need more than 3 to 5 pages per chapter. Because readers today, for some reason, want short chapters. And I don't know, maybe it's true. But I've kept that in my mind. Doesn't mean that I won't go over 6 or 7 pages once in a while, but I make sure I don't do 8, 9, or 10, because people can get bored, unless you're really into something intense. And it depends on the reader. Everybody's different. So, yes? Anything else? Ladies, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.